Welcome, one and all, to the Double S Dubs podcast. I'm your host, Jester Wylde. This is the first episode. I will have a co-host later on in the season. This episode has no news, nothing new, anything like that. It's just an insight on my fandom in wrestling and why I decided to do this podcast. To start things off, when I was younger, a buddy of mine paid for his first WrestleMania pay-per-view. It was WrestleMania 9 when Hulk Hogan was very, very overrated. Well, in my opinion. Some people loved him, some people hated him. Whatever. This is also the time when Tatanka, Ted DiBiase, HBK, and Doink. One of the matches I remember the most was the Tatanka HBK match there. It was all outside and stuff. It was pretty cool. Then on, I decided to go to our local movie store, Mr. Movies, and I started renting pretty much all the past VHSs of, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, all those good tapes, and I really got a grasp onto wrestling, and, the ladder match between Razor Ramon and HBK, that blew my mind. It was the first time I ever seen any, thing of those kind of moves, and stuff like that. It was also when the Click, Diesel and Razor Ramon, that's an interesting story. I actually noticed in the tapes that Diesel and Razor Ramon had switched characters. There was new people playing their characters, and one happened to be Kane. At the time, I freaked out. I'm like, that's not them. That's these guys are ugly. That's not Razor. That's it was a great time to be a kid and wrestling. My first house show was here in my hometown. It was I think the HBK versus Goldust time period. I know that they did a lot of matches together and stuff. But what I remember most is HBK coming out after Goldust had already, done his entrance. He was in the ring. HBK went out to the audience, and there was a sign that said "Goldust sucks." And he grabbed the sign and just started, pointing it at Goldust, and the whole crowd popped. He also, after his match, HBK won, and he also brought a kid out from the audience to have him sit on his arm while he did his, tough guy, pump your arms leg thing that he does. I was really jealous about it and actually made up a story to some of my family members that I was that kid. Turns out my aunt found out that wasn't the case from the adult that took us, and my lie kind of shattered into pieces. But that's just the kind of dreams and hopes that kind of show pretty much gave me. And then the Monday Night Wars, me and my stepsister would religiously watch the Monday Night Wars, Monday Night Raw, and WCW Nitro. And that's I went to WCW Thunder as a kid. I made an NWO sign, and I made sure that all the little squigglies and all the, how it's like a block type style, which is kind of rough, and the edges are all rough. Dude, I made sure every one of those edges matched up to what the actual logo looked like. And then I left the sign there, which, all that work and blah, blah, blah. But when I was at that Thunder, I had gone outside because my little cousin was scared of the loud noises and the pyrotechnics and such, and he also had a broken leg, so he was on crutches and stuff. So we ended up taking him outside to go get a ride home from his mom, and Vampiro was out in the parking lot, and I quickly just said, "Hey, Vampiro," and he said hey and stuff, and it was really cool. I also remember a botched Booker T leg kick to some guy's face in the corner, and I remember it, and then I'd go home and I watched Thunder on the television, And it was the first time I really realized that different camera angles are for a reason. And when they switch really fast, it's so that they don't catch it if it did miss. And that's when I realized that wrestling was quote unquote fake. Now, I know everybody's getting, their panties in a twist. Wrestling is not fake to me. It's a dance. It really is. It takes two people, to do these moves, to catch these moves, and make sure that you're both safe so that you can put on an entertaining show. I used to record the New Age Outlaws entrance, and I'd dub over my voice for when they were like, the badass Billy Gunn, the New Age yeah, I would be like, and Jesse, or whoever, my character wanted to be at that time. I also broke a WCW heavyweight title over my head, like the plastic ones, the toy ones. I was very sad because it was one of my favorite belts, but I used to wrestle a body pillow just because, that was the cool thing back in the day. One of my favorite memories from Raw is The Undertaker chasing HBK up the Titantron. That was so great to me, and how HBK played it, as a scared individual. HBK is one of my favorite wrestlers from back in the day. The way he would take hits, and he would drop to one knee, and then he'd get back up, and then he'd drop to one knee again like he's staggering. Man, he sold that shit. He sold those shows. And I was really sad when, Stone Cold beat him, but I didn't realize that he had a broken back and such, stuff like that. Other mentions is The Rock. I never really liked him in the beginning until he started becoming really popular. And I'm like, well, this guy's actually, it was his heel thing when he was in the Legion of Doom. I didn't like that persona. I thought he was vain. I thought he was all into himself, and, rightfully so. Another, groups that really brought it out in me, the whole wrestling and like I said about the ladder match between Razor Ramon and HBK was like the basis for the Hardys, the Dudleys, Brood, Christian and Edge, Too Cool, the high-flying, fast, charismatic cruiserweight type division is what sold it for me. Obviously DX. Never really liked HBK or Triple H, but HBK was my favorite. And then when DX ended up getting X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws, I actually thought that was a really cool thing to do. In the same time as NWO is making every member of WCW a NWO member. That's why, like, the Wolfpack was cool, because it was like, oh, these 5 guys broke away from, what was already crazy. I mean, I'd go online every week, and I'd even read spoilers and shit, just so I could, like, watch it and be like, I knew that was going to happen, and everything like that. I do have a bunch of notes here, because I'm trying to get out all this stuff. There was one more thing I wanted to say. Oh yeah, the Wolfpack gang. Me and a couple buddies of mine we had in this little neighborhood. It was me and my stepsister, and then like 3 other people from around the neighborhood, and we all called ourselves the Wolfpack. And we had a clubhouse. And I recently just went to a wedding, and I haven't seen, I've seen my stepsister and stuff, but the other people in our Wolfpack were there, and it was like we got a picture of us doing the, too sweet, the kiss of the Wolfpack, or the Clique. And then I kind of fell off of it for a while, the whole WWE thing, once WWE bought WCW. I watched it for a while, but I just wasn't as into it. And I also have a weird story about Jeff Hardy and AOL Instant Messenger. So I had tried to create, I don't know if anybody knows, when we used to role play in chat rooms, the asterisks, and you do certain things. I was trying to create a role-playing chat room wrestling type thing where we would do moves to each other and everything. And I got this screen name of Jeff Hardy for life, and he claimed to be Jeff Hardy, and there was a bunch of like serendipitous things that he would say to make it sound like it actually was him, and I would always tell him I didn't believe him and all that other stuff. But it was funny, because I fed his whatever he was trying to do. I mean, we just ended up talking and becoming friends and whatever, but I haven't talked to him in years. It was like high school, and AIM was the thing. But in high school, this is a great story. I decided I wanted to create a wrestling organization. That was a time when I was into like ICP and Juggalo and like backyard wrestling and all that good stuff. Like that video game came out and it was super cool. You could hit people with all these different objects, and so I had a bunch of people sign up, and I had contracts for each of them. We did a quote-unquote show in the backyard of my buddy's house, and we had at least 20-something people in that backyard. It was insane. We thought we were the shit. We had our own little faction, like the NWO or DX. We had girls all over us. It was crazy. And then we had all these, high school kids wrestling each other to be part of our faction. And I got thrown, shout out to Big John, I got powerbombed through a makeshift table we had. One of the kids jumped off a roof into somebody. We went and stole a garbage can from the alley, and we were hitting each other with that, putting each other through it. It was a grand old time. Everybody was having fun. I had contracts we had names for everybody. We had characters, and I was like this. I was the Dusty Rhodes. No, not Dusty. Cody. I was the Cody Rhodes of AEW right now, and we'll get into that later. But, yeah, I had all this organized and everything, and then we decided, before school that we would put on a little show for people near the entrance, and we were jumping off fences into each other, and let's say I got in a lot of trouble. I got sent to the principal's office, where the principal, the wrestling coach, the vice principal, and like my main teacher were in there, and they had all my contracts of all these wrestlers. So time went by, and nothing ever came of that organization. We kind of tried here and there, but it never really got anything. Now, there was a huge gap in me watching professional wrestling. I fucking hated John Cena with a goddamn passion. With the buyout of WCW, it was chaos in WCW. Like I said before, with that whole NWO adding every member and everything, there's room for chaos in professional wrestling, but there has to be a limit on it. When you give wrestlers creative control of their characters, and then they go haywire with it because you gave them all the control, and they just start ruining the product. Now, like I said, I hated Cena, the whole word life and the lock chain. It wasn't, I didn't like it at all. Now, in this big gap of me watching professional wrestling, I pretty much only watched when there was big pops. I watched the whole CM Punk extravaganza at the Pipe Bomb. I thought it was pretty interesting, that Vince McMahon cut him off twice. And I really wanted to know more, because it was the first time anyone was trying to stab the company, like CM Punk did. I also got back in it when TNA tried to do their Monday Night War attempt, which failed gloriously. I thought it was awful. But in these gaps, like when DX returned, or when Vince McMahon was gonna ruin his company from the inside.